Okay.
Hello.
Hi. Hopefully everyone can hear us. Feel free to drop us a chat if you can hear us to make sure that we're actually unmuted, because I'm still learning technology and it's a journey.
You're very brave.
Yeah, figuring it out. Welcome to the beautiful and wonderful and amazing author, Josephine Moon. Thank you for coming on the show.
So happy to be here. It's so exciting to just sit and chat with other neurodivergent women. It's just always so
I agree. We need our community, don't we? 100%. Okay. Yeah. No one's chatting yet. Maybe it's not coming through. Hold on. Just want to make sure it's on. Drop us a line if you can hear us. Let me see if this is working. I'm just logging in myself to see if I can hear anything. Oh, I think because it's delayed a bit.
It is a bit delayed,
yeah.
Just the video anyways.
Weird.
I'll try not to talk over top of it.
No, that's okay. It's Princess and the Pea podcast, and that's what we do here. We talk over each other. All right, let's just kick the ball off, and hopefully people can hear us. Usually you'll get a comment if they can't, if they're seeing us. Anyway, I'm still learning this live stuff, but oh my gosh, I love your book. I actually haven't read fiction in quite a while. And I'm a big fiction reader, more so sci-fi and fantasy, but I do love some good, like, what do you call it, uplit and chick lit and just feel good stuff. I think I mainly read like Sally Hepworth and all that sort of stuff. Not that hers is quite the same, but she also has neurodivergent characters, but she doesn't actually like say that they're neurodivergent, which kind of sucks. And I hope her future books actually like call us out and are proudly openly neurodivergent.
That is a whole topic which I have.
Yeah, well, I'm actually interested to know what. We're just going to dive straight in.
So, yeah.
No, but like, what were your thoughts around, how much should I be using labels and identity first, like language, and versus making it more character based without the labels, which there's pros and cons to both, of course. But yeah, curious.
Yeah, there's so much in that, so much to unpack, and I have so many thoughts, and I'm not sure that I've fully got them all kind of ready, sort of in nice articulated sound bites. Yeah. I've thought about this a lot because I'm running a workshop for CYA conference in it's June or July. I can't remember. I always get June and July stuff. Anyway, and they've asked me to present on writing neurodivergent characters.
Awesome.
Which is great. But there's one thing that I've sort of been thinking about a lot is, like, I frequently read books that clearly have neurodivergent characters in them. I mean, really clearly.
Yes.
And I find it very, very frustrating that people won't label them. Now, on the one hand, this is where my conflict comes from, because on the one hand, I feel like, yes, we should just be able to accept everybody with whatever differences, needs, accommodations, individual quirks, bits and pieces that they have, without needing an explanation and without needing, somebody to justify something.
Yeah.
So I do feel that. But at the same time, I feel like if we're not naming it, we're shaming it.
Yeah,
and I think
agreed.
that there's so much, the very word autism or autistic just triggers people into so much stuff. So, like, I know people accept the word neurodivergent much more easily than they do the word autistic.
Yeah.
And that's just, and it's not really their fault, it's because they've been conditioned, as we all were, to see this very narrow, damaging, deficit, difficult, negative stereotype. And then it's something awful and some kind of tragedy, and it's something to be ashamed of.
Yes.
And so I feel like that whole thing needs reversing, and that's difficult to reverse if we're not going to name it and say what it is and bring it out into the light in an affirming way.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, like, I can definitely see why some people don't like naming it, but I think that there's like a responsibility in a way to help us with the whole journey of like destigmatizing language and like putting another narrative out there which is more truthful than the deficit lens that is the DSM and the diagnostic criteria, which we all know that that's not really autism. That's like a slight element of autistic trauma, like externally judged. It's not what autism is to us. And so I think if you're not using the language and the words, then how are they ever going to know? Like, for instance, I forgot, I think it was what Sally Hepworth's book was, The Good Sister was the book, where the character is like an autistic woman. And I just wonder how many people read that and have no idea, and therefore do not connect the dots that maybe they really relate to that character and really see themselves in her, in both her struggles and her strengths, and unidentified themselves, and they'll never know because it was never called out. Similarly with Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine. It's a great book. She's definitely autistic, and that's not mentioned at all. And even in the interviews, I remember reading it and, stalking the author like I do, with Sally Hepworth. And Sally Hepworth was at least very open about the fact that she chose not to use the labels, but the author of Eleanor Oliphant didn't even mention that it was linked. And yet to me it was like so obvious that this woman was autistic and something. So it was refreshing to read your book where it was just so open.
Thank you. It's I have read I have to confess I do love Sally's writing, but I did not read The Good Sister because I think it came out pretty much exactly about the time that I got my identity, or just before, and I was just kind of so full of a lot of emotions, and I just thought, I don't want to read something that's going to, I didn't know what it would be like. And
it's a great book, by the way.
That it was not going to, but it was going to be something that would just make me upset, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I have since read an article, someone was interviewing her, and she said, she says, that her character has a sensory processing disorder, but she didn't know whether she would meet autistic criteria and so forth. And that's that. But yes, absolutely. There is so much of that just hiding characters within books, and and sometimes maybe it's because the author feels that because they are autistic, they shouldn't be talking about it, or I just don't know. But I definitely see, and I know you've confirmed that too, that people react badly to the word autism or autistic. And so I think in some ways it's about them protecting their sales a little bit as well.
Yeah, that's fair. You don't want the book to turn into just like a book about autism or something.
Exactly.
Which is just so one-dimensional. So I get that. Absolutely.
Yeah, totally.
Which I don't
Totally.
think your book did at all. I love the depth and just so many different elements and so many beautiful, like, divergent characters. I think one thing that I think is really nice to see, not only in terms of actually using the right, like, the language, not right language, but just using language in general, is just such, like, diverse representation and having a storyline that really does embrace difference and change. Like, that was just really refreshing.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I really wanted to do was, well, I guess there were two things. So I'd already pitched, I write on advance, so I get paid an amount before I write a book, which is always terrifying because I always think, oh, I can't write. But I had already pitched an idea to my publisher, and she'd already accepted it. And so I was going to write something else.
Yeah.
And then sort of, I got sort of went through all the process, the identity process, and I was sort of processing all this stuff. And I just thought, there were a few things. So stories always come from a few different places at once, right? So one was that I'd always wanted to write a road trip story. And I had previously done it in my previous book, The Jam Queens, kind of, because it was a train trip, but my characters were a family that took a train ride from Darwin down to Adelaide. Gotcha. And that was really fun. I really, really enjoyed that. And then the other one was that animals are such a huge part of my life, major, they're my special interest, and horses just a little bit more so. Yeah. But I really wanted to, I have managed to write an animal character into all of my books, but I really wanted to kind of supersize that and just go with the whole, let's just go with the whole arc of animals. Like, I'm just going to enjoy my special interest in this book, And then the other one was, of course, this idea of a neurodivergent teacher. So having been a teacher in the past and burning out quite quickly and having a lot of shame about that, but not understanding why I burnt out. Of course, now I do. Now I know exactly why.
Yeah.
I just thought I hadn't ever written a book with a character who was a teacher, because for me their career shouldn't be kind of just there happened to be this. It sort of has to drive the plot a little bit.
Yeah.
And I hadn't really had a purpose to put a teacher in a story. And I just thought it was such an interesting space of, like, schools aren't yet capable of fully supporting neurodivergent students. How they even do it then for a teacher? Like, how are we going to find that space? So for me, that was sort of those three things came together, and that was the most interesting thing.
Yeah.
To look at. But I really wanted to, aside from that, then quite quickly I realized that, one, I wanted to celebrate my experience of autistic identity, which was this incredible opening of doors, this incredible opening of my world, all of this amazing connection that I found with other autistic women online, and then ADHD as well.
Yeah.
And just going, wow, like I so wish I'd had this my whole life. And it was so amazing and so affirming. I really wanted to celebrate that whole sense of community, because every other book I've ever read that had an autistic character in it, normally they're kids' books, right? So we've barely seen anything in adult fiction anyway.
Yeah.
So we've got kids' books, but most of those have also been, up till very recently, it's the brother is causing the sister a hard time, or it's all about how that autistic person is disrupting these people's lives. Still very negative. And I'd pick up these books and think, oh my God, like, if I was an autistic kid reading this book, I would be deeply upset.
Mortified, yeah.
So I really wanted to celebrate sort of that whole, and so sorry, getting back to that. The point is that generally it's one autistic character trying to find their way to fit into the world. That's the narrative. If we've had a narrative at all, that's been it.
Yeah.
And I just
we know that, like, birds that fly together, flock together, whatever that saying is, right?
Yep. Exactly. And so I wanted to flip the whole story and go, actually, we're an entire community. We're worldwide, one of the biggest minorities in the world. There's a lot of us.
Yeah.
And we can do amazing things when we're together. So that was sort of the two things I really wanted to flip and celebrate.
And I also think, like, I've obviously read lots of non-fiction books around, autistic people telling their stories, and due to, I think, like, the social deficit angle of the DSM, I think people have, up until recently, sort of almost felt forced to lean into the whole I struggle with friends narrative, which, as we know, isn't quite accurate in terms of like none of us want to be loners. Maybe some of us do. Actually, sometimes I do. But like autistic community is so important for our mental health and our identity. And so I just love that, you know, your book really does bring the community element out in it. And I think smashes that stereotype of autistic people don't want friends and community and social, like, which is all just rubbish. Like, we want to be accepted, and we are more accepted with our own neurokin generally. So that was
and the whole kind of idea too of like when you go out with when you find an autistic friend, say, as an adult, and then you go out together and whatever, and then like I had this experience one day where I went out to lunch with some people and I was still getting new sort of taking ADHD meds and stuff, and I'd sort of forgotten and didn't realize I'd forgotten, and then everything kind of went off haywire for me, right? And I'm losing my words and I'm babbling and I'm falling over things and whatever. And eventually, as I realized, my sister, I think, was there a time too, was like teeny meds or something. Oh my gosh, I do. And then like someone's like, get you some water, and I'll get it in. And how often do you have to take this? Next time I'll remember and I'll remind you. And like this beautiful organic, just I know what you need. I can support you to do it. You know, it's just such a gorgeous,
so cool.
like you know, we can thrive together really, really well.
Yes, I agree. And I think because like even if because we are always so diverse within our own community as well, so it's not that we all have necessarily the same experiences, but we at least know what to look for or how to respond to distress or frustrations that isn't invalidating or, you know, demeaning or othering. And I think that that's really important. It's that element of acceptance and accessibility that we provide each other. And, you know, I get so many messages from neurodivergent women mostly, and gender diverse folk, and most of them info dump on me and like share like these essays of a story, and then they're always apologizing for it. And I'm like, nah, that's neurodivergent culture, that's autistic, like that's just what we do, and there's nothing to apologize for. And for me it's been really refreshing because I used to do that and still do sometimes, but seeing how common it is for our community, you know, that almost that deep level of shame that we have around it because we've probably experienced many times in our lives where we've been told we're talking too much or you know, to get to the point, whatever, that it's sort of giving me permission to not do that anymore. And I try and pass that forward to anyone who says it to me. I'm like, don't apologize for this because I love it. That's my language. That's my style of communication.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But I saw I had two thoughts and then they like went in separate ways. But I was listening to Jen Blythe, who's the CEO of Deaf Australia, who's phenomenal, at the Suicide Prevention Conference last week, and she was talking about, you know, how the deaf community are like leading the way in terms of disability identity and, you know, liberation and stuff. She was talking about how was there on behalf of the deaf community, which is both in the disability community and the CALD community, so CALD, culturally and linguistically diverse community, because being deaf is a culture. And I was like, oh, mic drop. Like, yes. And that they have their own language, which is Auslan. But I'm like, I relate to that on an autistic level. Like, we don't have Auslan, we're not that cool, but although many of us do use Auslan, obviously. But our language is things like being direct and, you know, using, now I'm like not thinking of any ideas, but like info dumping and sharing extra information. And there's so many ways that when you meet an autistic person, you're like, oh my God, they communicate like me. I can not be embarrassed and try to suppress that because most people get frustrated by it or show some form of rejection.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I think is why it is so common that when, you know, we realise our identity, we know that there are various people around us who are also neurodivergent, and that's why, because we sort of collected them unconsciously. I mean, my husband and I are a great example of that. Neither of us knew that we were autistic ADHD when we met, but lo and behold, hey, yeah, you're exactly the same. And, you know, so it's really common, I think, too. And if I think about sort of like, you know, the really great people I've connected with over my life, whether they're identified or not, to me, they're different. You know, they're different from the typical.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Siobhan says, great interview, a little echo. I find that LinkedIn sometimes is a bit glitchy. It's probably something I'm doing in the background that's not right. Yay, technology. If anyone's on LinkedIn and hearing the echo, if you pop over to my YouTube page, which is just Annie Crow, or search Autistic Author Talks Annie Crow, it'll come up. And YouTube won't have the echo. I'm not sure what's going on with LinkedIn, but I'm learning. So thank you, Siobhan. Great to have you here. I've got had a good chat with Siobhan recently, actually. I cannot multitask. Fun. Anyway, but yeah, no, I love that so much. I just really hope that authors, like other authors in your genre, read your book and start sort of following suit in terms of opening up the way that they use these characters and speak about these things, because I feel like we're on the precipice of like a shift in literature, right? And that's really exciting. But
not just literature, we're on the
everywhere.
We're a big revolution, and I think, you know, in 10 years' time it's going to be really, really different. But right now it is just starting to sort of break through the cracks and sort of go in that direction. But I mean, one of the things that I felt really, really, you know, so much pressure about writing the book was the fact that it was the first of its kind in that space. So we've had some children's, we've had some YA, and there's been a bit of a movement in the romance field. I sort of see bits here.
I've read a few of them.
But nothing in that contemporary fiction space. So I knew that, like, you know, first of all, breaking kind of trends can go either way, right?
Yeah,
that can go
like, oh my God, you read it all about that or whatever. Yeah.
Or I guess that's an example of my black and white thinking. Or I guess it's just go, you know, mediocre. You never know.
It could be brilliant. It could be shit. It could be in the middle.
But I have been so affected and touched by the number of autistic readers who read it and just like came to see me when I was out on tour, who messaged me, who are still messaging me, just going, I have never felt so seen. I have never felt so like just welcomed and like represented in a space ever. So many saying it's making them cry, like sobbing, crying. Which
I bet.
That wasn't my intention at all.
I find that so funny when like some of my speeches, there are people crying and I'm always just like, I hope it's a happy cry.
Right.
I didn't mean to.
Oh, I'm sorry, but I think that's good. And you know, and then I've had a number of neurodivergent teachers who've messaged me and just said, like literally, this is my story. Like page whatever, this happened to me. Page whatever, that happened to me. Like
that's amazing. Yeah, I feel like your book is the like fiction version, like the book version of Chloe Hayden's representation recently in Heartbreak High, like which has been like the first time so many of us have felt like seen on television and represented. And for your book, for me, is one of the first books I've been like, that's me. Because even like there's a series that's lovely, it's a romance series about I think the first book's about an autistic man and then the next one's an autistic woman, because while the author wrote it, she discovered, like, it was her brother was autistic, so the first book was about a guy, and then on that journey she discovered she was, and so the next book was about an autistic woman. But it was I think one of the biggest differences I noticed, I mean, other than that you're completely different people and everything, in those two spaces, is that because you're a few years on from your own identification journey, and you know you've been through all the roller coaster ride that is finding out you're autistic or neurodivergent and processing your whole life and figuring out what that means, to a place of like, you know, moving towards the neurodiversity community and acceptance and all that. Whereas I think, and all of us go through this, I certainly did, when I was first diagnosed, that first sort of year probably, you're very much entrenched in reading all you can around what is autism, and it's all so pathologizing and stereotyping and very medical language. And there's quite a difference I find when I hear people talk who are newly identified versus those who talk who are a bit on. And I'm not saying that you have to wait or anything. There's nothing wrong with that. All those parts of the journey matter, right? But for me, it was so nice to read a book that was where I'm at in my journey and not back there where I'm like, come on.
The interesting thing about that is I was there because I was writing it in, what year are we now? 2023. So I got my identity in March 2021.
Yep.
And I was writing a book by April 2021, so a month later. I was doing the first draft then. But
no way.
Well, so for two things, right? I guess I had done years of that kind of reading all that pathology because my son was identified first, which is how most of us
Gotcha. So it wasn't that fresh. Yeah.
So I'd sort of been through all of that. And then suddenly I found... I always knew who Chloe was. She was the first person I found online when my son was identified. So I'd sort of followed her for years.
Oh, cool.
And then I can't remember then what happened, but I found Reframing Autism, and then who were brilliant in neuroframing and everything, and started just amassing. Somehow found that hashtag actually autistic, and just started following everyone everywhere,
and just going,
oh my god, like I'm reading everything they're saying and going, yes, this is me, like, and just for the first time ever, just going, somebody gets me, like I am just like all people, and that's. Yeah, that was just that really quick embrace of, and then being me, anything, I went, I'm going to set up a retreat, and because burnout was one of my age things, over and over again. And so I thought I really want to explore this. So, you know, there's that saying, you teach what you most need to learn. So I was like, I'm just going to amass heaps and heaps of knowledge and burnout, and then I'm going to run a retreat and see, you know, who wants to come. And so in doing that, I just sort of upskill really, really quickly on all the sort of current knowledge that we've got.
Yes.
And so I was kind of still in that space where Phoenix is, of sort of going, this is tricky. It's a tricky space. But I think that works.
But like you showed that journey of transformation, I think. Like,
I think so.
Not without spoiling anything.
But it's interesting because I think, you know, we talk about autistic pride, and I say that I'm a proud autistic person. I say it more as an affirmation, I think, than like a deep acceptance of it. And I think I've come to the conclusion that pride it's a process rather than sort of a destination, and that's sort of coming in layers, and sometimes it leaves, and sometimes it comes back, and you know, all of that sort of stuff. So pride's a really interesting thing. I was actually interviewing an author recently, Luke Rutledge, whose first book came out recently. He's a gay man who wrote a book about a gay man who it was sort of in that space of the plebiscite, the marriage plebiscite, and all that sort of awfulness that everyone had to go through at that time. And when I was asking him to describe it, he said it was about that kind of space between coming out and feeling and finding your pride. And I just had this moment. I couldn't even speak actually. I just thought, oh, this is exactly where I am right now. It just that's exactly how I feel. I've come out to the world. Only for my son, for no other reason. Literally just to try and break down, you know, barriers for him. But it's that sort of weird space of like, okay, I'm here. I'm out. But it's a process.
No, you're right. I saw a post today on LinkedIn where someone wrote a post about their autistic pride and how like much they loved being autistic, and it was lovely. Like, yay, I'm sure I've written similar posts, but I think this is a really important topic to cover because I feel like there's that pressure almost to be so happy about being autistic, and as much as you can love being autistic, it's still really hard, and we are still discriminated against regularly and shamed for who we are. So is any minority, really. So that's really hard, and you've got to like almost like actively work against that constantly. Let alone like, you know, the internalized ableism and stuff. And the other thing is, I think pride is really steeped in privilege as well, because the only like people who are allowed to be prideful of their identities are the people who are the most safe and privileged to even admit to those identities, let alone yell loudly. And I guess that's, for me, that's a big reason why I am so loud, because I'm like, if I have this privilege, I need to use it so others can come through, like I can break that ceiling and others can come through it. Whether that works or not, I'm hoping it does. But there wasn't that long ago, a couple of years ago, where I would not have felt safe to be as openly autistic as I am these days at all. And it was not in a safe place. I could have easily been homeless at a point, which I don't really talk about that often, but I think many of us have, you know, experiences in our life where we lose jobs, or you know, we burn out and everything's up in the air and our financial stability is questioned, and like that's a very real part of being autistic, and to be prideful when that's what your experience is really hard. So I love that you say that it's a journey, not a destination. Is that the right? Did I quote you right?
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. Yes, thank you for mentioning that, because it's so true, right?
Yeah.
You only even have the chance to out yourself if you know that all those foundational things are there to support you on the other side. And I was thinking about this the other day. If I was a teacher still, I don't think I would be outing myself. I think that would be an incredibly scary thing to do, and I think it would bring a lot of backlash and whatever discrimination with it. And so it's only because I work for myself, and that's the sort of situation I'm in, where I can go, But even then, I don't, it's not like I walk down the street. I live in a small town, like most people know who I am. I don't, just kind of randomly talk about it. So it's definitely still, choose your space and your place.
Yes. And I think that also, I'm similar, and working for myself is great because I don't have to deal with that. But I help a lot of people who are going through tough times at work, where their bosses or workplaces don't understand them and are getting discriminated against. And it just brings me back to how, I talk a lot about disability rights and speaking up and accessibility, but it's so hard. And this is actually one thing I really like about your book, because you do go into talking about accommodations for teachers and stuff. And it's so much harder to articulate that, to articulate your needs, and not only that, but then sort of have faith that they'll be met and not used against you, or you getting told that that's unreasonable because reasonable adjustments is so problematic. And so much of our autistic experience is very invisible, and no one really listens to us unless we've got some kind of medical professional backing it up in a report, which is an accessibility issue in itself for so many reasons.
So much. There's so many problematic systemic
issues.
Systemic issues.
It's okay. It is late at night. I think we're doing well considering.
Sorry, go on.
No, you go. I was getting excited.
I was sort of looking at all these, things happening in Phoenix in her workplace and going, this is, it would be so variable. I think, obviously there would be some amazing principals out there who would do an amazing job.
Absolutely.
But there's an awful lot that wouldn't, and there's an awful lot of, co-workers that wouldn't, and parents that wouldn't. And just because of the level of ignorance, and I say that kindly, ignorance in the true definition, just not knowing.
You
that you don't
know, right? But it's not an excuse to be ignorant. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
I think that's so true. And like I actually weirdly I hear like I get contacted a lot by parents whose children are getting discriminated against in school. Because I mostly work with adults. There's so many people that work with autistic kids and families that I'm like, that space is covered. I'm gonna help the adults who are forgotten.
Right. And that's a whole space that, is in desperate need.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I still get contacted by parents, which is fine. Like, I'm happy to help when I can. I usually send them some resources, but it's definitely not my area going through the education system. And also it terrifies me because I've got a toddler who is absolutely neurodivergent like his parents. And I'm going to have to face that one day, and it's sort of going to be luck of the draw from what I hear about whether we get a school and teachers and principals that either are open to helping and difference and embracing all of that or aren't. And I know that that's something that is coming and that everyone is currently dealing with right now. It's just far too real, and it's terrifying because like that's our future generation. Like, teaching is so important, and that nurturing our kids is just like number one priority, right? And yet the amount of times I hear that these kids are getting told that they're problematic and it's all their fault, and that if they just applied themselves, and I'm like, when are they going to learn that? And thank God there's really, really good educators out there who are breaking these barriers down slowly. But, when are they going to learn that kids do well if they can, and, stop being ableist?
And I think is only the tip of the iceberg, because then you've got all the people like we were who just got on and did stuff at school.
Yeah.
So we seem completely fine, and yet we're not. Right? We're really high risk. Like that whole profile of unidentified autistic. I can't speak for autistic women. I'm not sure about men. Just the whole risky behaviours, eating disorders, depression, anxiety, just all of it, self-harm, all of it. It's just like I was like classically unidentified. When I read that list, I just went, oh my God, that was just me to a T. And then that's what they're going home to. They look like this. And getting high marks, and they're doing
going home and breaking.
And they're everything. And then they're going home and, dying inside.
Literally.
It's really, that's the scary part, I think.
Yeah. And that's the same. Like, I think it's interesting because like a lot of the kids that I hear about are the kids that are more less internalized autistic, so more out, like not high masking, and they're not getting their needs met, and yet they're obvious, and yet what about us who internalized and masked and hid all of our needs and our struggles? What chance in hell do we have of having our access needs met when they're not even giving the access needs to the people who are quite open about what they need? It's so bad. So bad. I just did the suicide prevention, not sorry to bring this up again, but like I did the suicide prevention speech last week at the conference, and myself and Jen, the CEO of Deaf Australia, were the only two disability speeches in the whole 4 days. And disability was barely mentioned at all, which blows my mind. And obviously I focused on autism and she focused on deaf community, and I focused on autistic community. And it was just really interesting. I do a lot in the mental health space, mostly in like eating disorders and trauma and women's health and everything. But the conference was very focused on men, which is quite rare for the mental health space, because women attempt suicide more. I'll do a trigger warning, I think, at the start of this when I put it live, but trigger warning in case anyone's listening. I'm not going to go into any details, but women attempt suicide more but aren't as successful. and men attempt it less but have higher success rates. Success is not a great word, but anyway.
Completion.
No, that was not a word either. Yeah, completion. Yeah, but they completed suicide. Yeah. So, and you know, like, men don't talk about their feelings. Actually, a lot of the challenges that men face are similar to what I feel like high-masking autistic women and gender diverse people face around hiding their inner experience. Slightly different, you know. But anyway, it just blew my mind. And then when I did my talk, I didn't think anyone would show up because it was at the same time as one of the, like, there was always multiple talks going on at once, and there was like the suicide prevention strategy update at the same time. Like, no one's going to come to mine. Anyway, it was packed, which I was really surprised at, but I feel like that's showing the interest in autism and neurodivergence, which is great. And people, you could see the looks on their faces when I pulled out the stats around, like, autistic women are 13 times as likely to die by suicide. And it's just, it just blows my mind because, I mean, for me, I think some of the challenges of being high masking, or at least not having a co-occurring intellectual disability, is that the things that we struggle with if we don't have our access needs met tend to be not as overt in what the problem or implications are. It's more like hidden and long-term outcomes, you know, like longer-term burnout and poor mental health and sometimes physical health as well. And it's so hard then to help people understand the linkage between, like, you not helping me all this time has led to very bad things.
It's like global warming. It's
it's very much like global warming.
We can't see it, and one day
we gotta stop destroying the environment, stop destroying autistic people's identity. Like,
totally. I'm really interested in, I mean, those stats are, now that we're getting better, you know, at identifying people, and we're getting better at supporting people in a neuroaffirmative way, I'd be really keen to see over time how those stats change at a physical, in terms of, like, you know, we felt like that because we weren't being supported, or we didn't know who we were, or we didn't know, you know,
couldn't find our community.
Yes, exactly. We couldn't make connection because we didn't know how to, because we didn't know who we were. And then if we can change that, I'd be really keen to see the difference.
Yeah, it's why I'm really passionate about working in what they call upstream mental health. So suicide prevention, I don't know if they use this more broadly, but they do in suicide prevention. Downstream is like when you're in a crisis and you call an ambulance, and upstream is like preventative steps so that you don't hit that downstream point. And a lot of disability rights lawyers tend to be more downstream focused, of you come to them when you're being discriminated against to fix the problem. And what I do in my consulting work is more upstream disability rights. And so I'm trying to get people and organizations to put things in place early and help with accessibility before it gets to the point where they have to call in the bigwigs and the dogs, and everyone gets all defensive and not so kind. And like, why do we have to even get to that point?
Absolutely. And this is kind of the point when you haven't, I know you haven't read past the middle of the book, so
I've only done half. I'm like, don't spoil it.
But it is
ADHD PDA. Didn't finish.
It is kind of the point that Phoenix makes several times through this book, which is that this is not just about autistic people. Like people look at it as this annoying little, we have to do that for those people. But as we've talked about, there is so much overlap between neurodivergence and trauma, for example, and so many people are dealing with all sorts of trauma. There's so many of these accommodations are actually just common sense that help calm everybody's nervous system. And truckloads of people need that because they're dealing with all sorts of things at home, you know, and they're dealing with violence, and they're dealing with whatever. There's just so much stuff. So we just like just blanketly go, this is what humans actually do well. ins, let's just apply that. Like it's not this special, extraordinary thing. It's actually just what
exactly. It's just almost like this next layer, but it's similar. And I think that sort of on reflection of how far we've come in the mental health space and understanding, mental well-being in the last decade or so. I think that's going hand in hand with how we understand everyone has struggles self-regulating and everyone has periods of mental health challenges, no matter who you are, or what your background is or anything. And so a lot of the stuff that help anyone help autistic people, and a lot of stuff that help autistic people help everyone, like the universal design aspect. It's like, why don't we all just have an open culture where I don't need to go into an office and say, I'm autistic, I need A, B, C accommodations. I can go in and say, I do my best work if I'm allowed to work from home or wear headphones or not take phone calls and only emails or whatever it looks like. And then to have the response go, yeah, sweat, no sweat, we're inclusive, whatever works for you, let's just do it. Rather than, actually, I'm going to need proof of your diagnosis, and then I'm going to need like an OT to write a report on why you need that and if it's really necessary. And then you've already got like this like
speak for myself and tell you the truth about what I need. Right? Some person who doesn't actually know me should be able to say that.
and it does. I think it takes your autonomy, like, because you lose your voice in that. It's like, well, I'm saying what I need, and like you know how hard it is to even figure out what you need and what is like making you burn out versus what's helping. Especially with the complicating factor of autistic and ADHD, which can be quite contradictory.
Right?
Yeah. So it's so disempowering to not be able to advocate for yourself and be completely trusted in that. And, people's excuses I hear are, people will just rot the system, or, like someone will want flexible hours who doesn't really need it. I'm like, but will they? Will they?
Yeah.
I feel like, sure, there'll be one or two people, but...
But also people can rot the system sitting in their desk at the office as well.
Exactly. It's not exactly the best excuse.
You're either that type of person or you're not. And, you don't really change much depending on where you work.
Yeah. And for me, like I did my law thesis on flexible work practices in Australian law firms, because back then I was like very feminist. I'm still feminist, but like that was my main focus was, women's rights, and I wanted to be a mum, and I also wanted to have a boss-ass career. So I was really motivated on breaking down the barriers to women succeeding in private law. But when I look back at that thesis, so much of it overlaps with accommodations maybe needed for carers or disabled folk like us, or so many different areas, right? Oh, there's an echo when you talk. Okay, so I think... Hold on, I'm going to try something. I'm going to do this. It might take a second for them to notice. I think I might have had two things on. Anyway, it should be fine. Hopefully this fixes it. I'm just going to... I can't multitask. I don't even know, like, how to respond to the chat, like, on here. It's letting me search but not respond.
That's okay. You can probably just talk and they'll hear you.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so hi, Natalie. Thank you for letting us know about the echo. I think I might have fixed it. I'm hoping that this has fixed it, but we will have to wait and see. Do let us know if you can still hear it. Otherwise, the YouTube doesn't have an echo. There's something funny about LinkedIn having this issue. Anyway, I digress. So what were we saying?
I don't know, but I reckon we should talk about dogs. Because...
dogs are the best.
Because I saw a photo of your dog the other day, and I was just like, this is the most adorable dog
Moose,
in the world.
He's my baby.
Yeah.
He would be in here right now, but my husband was getting takeout for dinner, and he would have barked his head off when the door went, so he'll be out there bugging Ben and being like, let me into Mum. He's my shadow.
Well, we have this, it's 99% certain. It probably is 100% certain. It's just that my brain hasn't quite got to accepting the 100%.
Gotcha.
Certain that we're getting a puppy in a month's time. to train, hopefully,
Oh, to be
as
an emotional
a
support dog?
therapy
Therapy
slash
dog.
service dog,
Yes. Oh, well, I hope
which
you
is
have
very
better luck than
scary.
me. Because
Oh, well,
I tried to get Moose trained to be my emotional support dog, and we got maybe halfway through the training, but he is very anxious.
yes.
We joke that he's like a mirror of me. Like, he's a very highly strung dog.
Yep.
So he wouldn't pass
The
test.
reason I'm laughing is because we also have one of those dogs. Her name's
Gotcha.
Sunshine, and she's a white golden retriever, and she was supposed to be that dog too.
Yep.
But she has also very high anxiety and takes medication.
Yes,
but she also has very mild elbow dysplasia as well. So that wasn't her path.
Oh.
That's fine.
That's fine.
She's living her best life.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
anyway,
I still
have a
call him
friend.
that. Like, he's just
I
not
have a
officially.
friend.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I have a friend who trained her own service dog. Like, I just don't understand how this happens. And anyway, the person who bred her dog has just bred some new retrievers, and
Ooh.
I'm a bit obsessed. I'm definitely
Retrievers are beautiful.
obsessed with golden retrievers.
They're gorgeous.
Yeah. I
That's
don't know. I think it actually, someone said to me yesterday on Facebook, because I put up a photo, because there's a dog, right? There's this dog, Humphrey, in the book, who's this black border collie cross, and he's based on
border collies.
Yeah, I know, me too. And he's based on my mum's old dog, and he was so smart, right? And
they are genius dogs.
So brainy, right? And my husband loves border collies too, and we've talked about border collies often, but I'm like, do you know what? And someone said to me, this is like, it's like having another ADHD person in the house. Like, this is literally why we don't have border collies, because there are too many active brains in this house already.
Yes.
And we need like the chill retriever types who are like, I think I'll just lie on the couch and watch some TV.
Yeah.
You guys can sort out whatever's going on out there. I'm not even going to bother.
Yeah.
But I remember Mum's dog was just so like, I'm just sorting out. He'd be sitting on the deck, and he's just like, I'm sorting out all the problems of the world right now.
Don't you think that reflects like our brains?
Yes, totally.
Yeah,
why we don't have them.
Yeah, I've got a standard poodle. So Moose is a standard poodle, and they come with so many health problems. But anyway,
oh no.
No, well, yeah, we had a standard poodle before him, and he had like a blood disorder, and then this guy is like allergic to the world, so he gets injections and has a dermatologist.
Oh my gosh, is he a bubble dog? Can I write a children's book about a bubble dog?
You can totally do that. Yeah, he basically is. Technically I can take him out, but anyway, the allergy meds are great. But so apparently border collies are the smartest dog, and then poodles are like the next smartest dog. I don't know how accurate that is, but that's what I've heard. And so when we were looking into dogs, we had to get one that didn't shed, because my partner can't deal with shedding because he's allergic. So we went down the poodle route for the non-shedding aspect, but also because poodles are so smart, and what the good thing about poodles tends to be that as long as they're mentally stimulated, they tend to be pretty okay. Like other dogs, if you don't walk them really regularly or run them, then they go crazy. And I couldn't deal with a dog like that, because I have pretty bad physical injuries and chronic pain and everything, and my husband certainly wouldn't. So I needed a dog that didn't need a lot of exercise, and could maybe do with more tricks and mental stimulation, which is definitely what poodles do. But someone told us when we first got a poodle, they're like, just prepare to be manipulated by your dog a lot. And it's so true. Like, he's so manipulative and just so switched on, even though he couldn't pass the test to be my emotional regulation dog, I still call him that, because I actually call myself his emotional regulation human. But he gives me this mirror of my own experience. So when I'm distressed, he gets distressed. And even though that's I used to think that was a really bad thing, because it would make me worse. But nowadays, it's actually a trigger for me to be like, you're stressed. Yes. You need to change something in your environment.
Yes.
Which is amazing.
I have such a similar story.
Really?
So my friend Rachel, who's autistic ADHD woman, was really exciting. So she has the service dog. His name's Jacob. He's adorable. And so when we go out and we have like cups of tea, right? She brings Jacob lies down, does his thing, and then we'll be chatting. And then somewhere along the line, I'll inevitably get stressed because apparently I get stressed all the time. And as I don't know that I'm getting stressed.
Yes.
But Jacob gets up, comes to me and puts his head in my lap. And I'm just like, oh man, the dog knows I'm stressed. And it's just the most powerful visual, like, do you realize you're stressed? And I'm like, no, I don't realize.
No, I don't. Yeah.
And then I breathe and I'm like, oh my God, I was like, it's just so powerful. So that just made me go, man, we need a dog. We need a dog in our house.
That's so
It's
beautiful.
just incredible.
It is.
And so generous of him to share his service with me as well, right?
Yeah,
he's
how giving.
Yes, I know.
I have a cool horse story if you want to hear it. I love horses, but dogs are my favorite animal. But horses I do love as well. But I just haven't been around horses a lot in my life. I've rode them once or twice as a kid, but didn't really have that opportunity, which sucks. But anyway, when I was really, really struggling after my first dog died, which was on his second birthday, and he got sick out of nowhere, and within a month he was gone, like multiple blood transfusions. It was very rare, but anyway, it just really, really shook me. And I hadn't really dealt with a really big, like, death in my life, which I'm very blessed. I have all 4 grandparents still, and in my immediate family I haven't really lost anyone super close to me. And so it was a big emotional time for me, and it was also when I was going through like a big burnout and all this stuff. But anyway, a few months after he passed, Mum and I went on like a little health getaway thing, retreat, and they had horse therapy. And I was like, oh, I'll give it a go, like whatever. Even if I just get to hang out with a horse, I don't care. I didn't know what to expect at all. And the horse, like at the start, she was sort of like trying to figure out what we were going to talk about, and for some reason it came up about my dog. And the horse came and nuzzled his head into my chest, and like I hugged his head, which I don't know how comfortable that was for him. I didn't like squeeze him. It was just like but it was just, I felt, And he stayed there for like the whole half hour. And the therapist said he's never done that, like ever. Like apparently he's done it once or twice with people, but it's a quick like nuzzle. But he fully let me like hold him and just was there like helping me breathe and regulate. I was like following his breath. And just I cried my eyes out, like, and then afterwards, I literally, it's like I got through my grief. It's like it just totally sped up that process where I was struggling, and then I saw this horse, and then from that day forward, every time I've thought of that dog, it's been with joy and love, and not complete sorrow and loss, which is crazy. Like, just. I don't even understand it. But it was just the most amazing experience. Like horses, oh my God.
It is. I'm so glad we've had that conversation, because I'm in the process of, it's taken me too long because I have always got too many, because I'm an ADHD, so I commit to like everything all the time, and then I have 8 different projects and I should only have 2.
Yeah.
But anyway, I am in the process of setting up my equine kind of assisted learning therapy stuff.
I'm going to have to come visit.
Oh, please do.
I so will.
Do you know, you may actually be able to fly from Canberra to the sunny coast now.
I think you can, surely. Hopefully.
That'd be
I'm always bypassing you to go to Townsville to see my folks in winter. So I might have to
that's a big flight. How long does that take from Canberra to Townsville?
It's like, I always have to stop through Sydney or Brisbane. And it's like, I don't even know, but it's like a day. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Sometimes they do direct flights, but not at the moment. Yeah. I'm like, why do you have to live so far away? But, that's where I'm from. All 4 grandparents.
I feel like I'm always in the wrong state. No matter where I am, everyone, alike is somewhere else.
Yeah, I feel.
But anyway, so yes, the horse thing. So I'm in the process of developing, getting it. Well, it's it's all. Yeah. This is my PDA, right? So we talked briefly offline about PDA, and I definitely identify as a PDA. Except I don't feel very knowledgeable about it, but I know that I have it. So one of my PDA issues is with forms. Forms drive me absolutely over the edge.
I like
I
run
just
for the
don't
hills when I see forms.
I just do not have regulation when it comes to forms. Like they
Yeah.
just send me bananas. And I have
Same.
so many forms to fill out for like insurance and councils and risk plans. And
Oh my
I'm like,
gosh.
I'm good with the horse thing. I just can't do it. Like I know I can do it. I'm
Yeah.
capable of doing it,
Well, I mean,
but I just can't make myself do
I
it.
question that because it's like, I think that saying that you can do it, I feel like that's a bit of our internalized ableism coming out,
Yeah,
right? Like we
maybe.
know we can do it because it's not like,
Yeah.
if you're a wheelchair user and you're like, I can walk, it's not the same thing. We can technically do it.
Yeah.
We've done it before. But I think it's similar to school refusal in the sense that we actually can't. And there's this actual reason why we're so avoidant and averse to
Yeah.
filling out forms and there's many reasons and everyone has different reasons. For me, it's like there's so much executive function required in like translating what the questions mean because they're rarely straightforward and they're usually really vague about what they want in answers. So that's stressful.
Yes.
And then there's like needing to collect information from different areas to fill it out, and then like knowing what's the right thing to say, because guess what, most of our lives we've not said the right or typical thing.
Yes.
and like there's so much cognitive energy in doing those forms that regardless of the PDA aspect, I think it makes sense that a lot of autistic ADHDers struggle with paperwork. But then if you add PDA to that, where you're getting told that in order to do this thing, which is, the horses, cool, equine therapy, you have to jump through all these ridiculous hoops that really could have been done in like a third of the amount that they exist in, and way better. And you're just like, you're like, no, I will not do that. So I think there's like, it's really, there's a lot of layers to that, but I'm still also unpacking PDA. If anyone's listening, go listen to Christy Forbes, who is like,
I know. Well, this is where I discovered that I was PDA because I went to do her course because I was like, I think maybe our son's in this category. And then I've gone and done it, and I'm sitting there going, this is me.
Yes.
And just like, oh man, this explains a lot.
So much.
Right? A lot of,
and it's hard because if you don't know that you're PDA, then you can, like, the problems that causes with your identity, similar to not knowing that you're autistic. When we become avoidant, we blame ourselves and we buy into you're lazy, or you're just not applying yourself, or you're not committed, or you can't do this, you're useless. Like all those narratives that aren't the truth of what's happening and don't acknowledge our real struggle, and the barriers that we face that most people don't see. Anyway, I don't know what I was saying, but it's important to acknowledge these things.
No, I'm with you. I'm going to grasshopper back to the horse. This is a term I used on a video recently, a grasshopper, and someone left a comment going, I've never had that term. And I was like, I think that's actually maybe just my family, my mum and my sister maybe use that. Grasshoppering. So it's when you grasshoppering around in conversations.
Yeah.
So now it's not just my family anymore. Or someone
I hope you did point it, because I'm going to be telling everyone that I heard it from you. So...
Right, but I'm just going to grasshopper back to the horse.
Yeah.
So, one of the reasons that horses help us regulate is because their physiology, if they are calm, right, because they're animals of prey, so their flight drive is massive. So we're actually really similar to them in a lot of ways in that constantly checking for threat and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But their actual physiology, they have a lower heart rate than we do. And so you actually co-regulate with them when you're around them because everything's slower. Yeah.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
If they're chill. Obviously, if they're not chill, they're
then
they're off there.
Chaos.
If they're chill,
yeah.
They're the best co-regulators because everything's slower. The breathing's slower, the heart rate's slower, everything's slower.
Yeah.
Brain waves probably as well.
Probably.
But it just matches. And then we go, oh, we feel so much better.
I feel so calm around horses.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true.
They're amazing on so many levels.
Oh, same. I think that that's something that with breathing and heart rate and everything, I find it interesting. You know how a lot of people will say, just calm down or slow down your breathing. whenever I've had that said, I'm like, yeah, like, oh my God, you're literally making me more stressed right now because I can't do that. But I recently had a ride in an ambulance with an autistic ambo, and she knew instinctively that wouldn't help. And she said, I'm just going to start breathing. Do you want to like try and match my breath? Which is like dreams. That's what I try and tell people when I'm stressed. I'm like, just breathe and I'll copy you. And I was like, oh, thank God. And she's helping me co-regulate. And I'm like, I wish more people knew that the best way to help someone regulate isn't to tell them to regulate. You know, it's to actually show them how you're regulating and let them like hitch a ride.
Totally,
Right?
totally. Far less words. We need far less words and far more just being and demonstrating, I think. Yeah.
Agreed. Anyway, I feel like we've totally got off topic. But I mean, your book's got amazing animals in it and everything, and this is giving people insights into your amazing mind, and I'm literally going to go read all your books now because I love it so much. And thank you for like relighting my love of fiction, because I've been way too heavy on the non-fiction for the last year and a bit, and I miss it.
Look, I think fiction is great for that. Just immersing in another world. Like, they're two different beasts, right? Fiction and non-fiction. And like, I can't read off a page anymore, fiction. So I have to do, since I have my son, right? My brain, this is what I now know happened. My brain just went, you actually don't have enough executive functioning to do everything. He's clearly the priority. So I'm just going to shut down your ability to read, to cook, and to drive, pretty much.
I had that before I had kids, but sure.
It's gone. So just going to redirect what you do have over there to the job is the highest priority, and everything else is going to shut down. So I haven't been able to read fiction off a page for
Do you listen to it?
Yes, I listen to everything on audio, and it makes me really, really cranky when books don't go to audio or they get delayed. Often they get delayed for months. And it's so frustrating, and it feels
you want to read it when it comes out and everyone's talking about it, but then you got to wait until the audio version comes out a year later, and you're like,
well, they're much faster. So a lot of stuff, like my books come out in audio at the same time.
I listened to it. It's really good. I loved it. It's so
that's good.
Yeah, well, because I got it on Kindle first, because I do a lot of reading on Kindle. But I sort of probably do 2/3 of reading on Kindle and then 1/3 on audiobooks. And I find audio, even though I love it, I really struggle with accents and voices, not even accents, but voice. I'm so sound sensitive that I need to make sure I like the voice, and the person who reads your book has an amazing voice. It's so nice to hear an Australian voice.
The narrator is everything with audiobooks. I can really make or break an audiobook.
100%.
I've had some really good narrators in the past couple of years. When my first book came out with Penguin a few years back, and they said, do you have any dream narrators? And I was like, I love Offspring. I'm a massive fan. And they went, we've got Cat Stewart for you, who played Billy on Offspring. And I was like, oh my God. So Cat Stewart narrated The Gift of Life and The Jam Queens. And I was just like beside myself excited. I was just like,
that's so cool. That's cool. I think I'm going to read The Jam Queens.
But I'm definitely Duncan.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say that one has definitely an autistic character in it. I didn't realize, but when I listened to it back, listened back to it, I was just going, oh my God, she's so autistic.
So good. Of course they do. So like, you're the writer. Of course you're going to like naturally project like your lived experience. That's so cool.
Yeah, and well, it's not even that it's my lived experience.
Oh, not even that, but you know what I mean. Yeah.
And but I think thinking back, there's definitely been a few over the years that are definitely autistic.
That's so cool.
Which is really, really interesting. So I'll let you.
I'll let you know when I'm reading it, and I'll be like, oh, is it this one? Don't tell me.
And then I'll go, no, it's that one. And then you'll go, oh, well, they're all autistic.
Yeah, I know. I'll be like, well, they're all neurodivergent, mate. Probably. That'd be awesome. I did want to ask you some more technical questions about your writing, because I'm in the middle of writing 2 books, but they're non-fiction, so not as cool. I did actually look into writing fiction a few years ago. I kind of just got distracted, but I
And
wanted to ask you like your process of like, you know, what like software do you use, and how do you go in terms of like, do you set your, you know, like if we're talking about like writers talk, when you listen to writers and they're all talking about like how many words a day they do or what limits they set themselves or how they work through a novel, I'm curious to know what your latest, I guess, methods are, and how that sort of interacts with your neurodivergence.
Yes.
Big
It's a
question.
very interesting question, that last part, because now I kind of reassess everything and go,
Yes.
oh, like that's that. And yeah. So basically so I had been writing for 12 years before I got a contract.
Yeah.
And I got my agent when my son was 6 weeks old. And I was like, are you serious? Like right
Wow.
now? Like couldn't be a bigger, more complicated time in my life. We were renovating a house and moving between two, like it was just terrible.
Wow.
So it has changed every year depending on how old he's been, basically.
Gotcha.
So when he was a baby, it was, like this, and then it was, was he at preschool, or, so it's just changed and changed and changed.
Of course, yeah.
I am useless at sticking to routines. I can't
Yeah.
stick to routines.
Yeah.
I can identify that I am best writing earlier in the day, like
Gotcha.
got the most dopamine and everything earlier in the day, and so it just works better.
Yeah.
By lunchtime, I'm pretty shot for fiction, but I can often do things like I'm teaching novel writing at the moment, and I spent this afternoon writing, PowerPoint slides and stuff like that, because I can do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, different part of the brain,
Fiction's such a huge, and it's just like there's nothing harder than writing fiction for me. It's just such a massive, you have to keep so much, like a whole world in your head all at once.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas non-fiction and things like that, you can break it down into chunks.
Yeah, exactly. So much easier.
Yeah, so you don't have to have as much continuity of stuff for non-fiction. So I can read non-fiction off page sometimes because it's sort of chunked and it's in white space and there's bullet points and it's sort of broken down like that. Anyway, that gets off track.
No.
I don't like leaving my desk unless I've done at least 1,000 words. That's just a mental thing. But sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes that takes an hour and sometimes that takes 5 hours, depending on what I'm writing and how resistant I am to being there. But it's, I like my room to be clean, but it never is. Like it's literally just
so torn.
Learn to work within a mess. I do try and have a bit of a kind of, I do try and have a bit of a transition kind of, not rituals, but just patterns, right? So I like to turn up with a cup of chai that I've just brewed, or coffee, depending on how tired I am.
Yeah.
Sometimes if I'm really resistant, I'll, light some incense, put on some music and do some crazy dancing just to get a bit of energy and just sort of a bit of focus. So just try and blast the fact that I've just spent an hour and a half getting everyone out the door with their lunches and everything. And and I've just used all my executive functioning in the past hour and a half getting everyone out the door.
Yeah. Need to refill that cup.
So totally. But it becomes a vicious cycle for me. With the more I need to write, the less I will write, and therefore the more pressure there is to write, and therefore the less I will write, and it becomes this really, really, really tricky, horrible cycle.
That's so PDA.
So I try and I try and get this kind of like I'm just going to commit to writing 2 sentences, or I'm just going to commit to 5 minutes. Like if I can get through,
just get rolling.
Generally I'll keep going. But it's just, I think it's that PDA thing of just like the more pressure there is to do it,
the less I will do it. Yeah, genuinely. And I think the worst part is in terms of deadlines and everything. If you've signed a contract, as you said, it's different to when you're writing on your own back. Is that the closer the deadlines get, or the more the pressure you're under to get it out, it's almost like has the opposite effect. I mean, sometimes I think for our ADHD minds, the pressure is helpful to a certain extent, but there's this, I think that's usually when it's close to the end, rather than like this big gap of like the lead up where the pressure's building and building, and like your PDA is like avoid.
I think I'm the opposite in that I'm like, my husband's one of those. He's the 11th hour, can't do anything until it's the 11th hour. Just No, I'm the complete opposite. So I guess this is probably one of those things that I learned to do when I was younger, was to manage the anxiety about it, was to be over prepared. So I'm an over preparer.
Yeah.
So everything will start early. I'll hand things in early all the time.
And I also feel like that's like an expression of your autonomy. Like you're controlling how soon you do it and not that deadline. I feel like that's almost like a antidote to the PDA brain where you're getting this pressure put at you and you're like, no, I will do this in my time. I just choose to do it earlier.
Yeah. And I will always build in more time than I need if I can. Like if they go, how long will it take you to write this? And I'll, in my head, I'll think, I could probably do it in 4 months, but I'm going to ask for 9. So that I don't have like time pressure for me is the thing that will blow my circuits more than anything else.
Yes, yeah.
It really will.
Absolutely.
There's a funny story on that, and I realize we've been talking for over an hour now, and I'm sure we can talk for another 3. But there is a funny story on that.
Yeah, tell me.
I went in 2010, I think. I went to New Zealand to do some training with Igala, which is it's a horse therapy system. And so they were US trainers. They come to Australia or New Zealand every sort of second year. So I went over there to do that. And so they get you to do all the stuff because you're going to teach other people to do it, right? So you would become the participants. And so I was in this situation where we had there was 4 of us in a team. We weren't allowed to talk. We weren't allowed to touch the horses, but we had to get every horse to go over a jump, like a little jump, within a certain amount of time. And so I was over there doing my thing, and I think we might have had like 20 seconds to come up with a plan or something. So I think we were going to take one horse each and get, be responsible for that horse. Anyway, so the time was ticking down, right? And the person was calling out, like 60 seconds, whatever. I couldn't get my horse to go over this jump.
Oh, no.
And it's so funny. It's so funny now. I panicked, of course, because the time pressure.
Yeah.
I flapped, like had a whole flapping moment.
Yeah.
And then, anyway, the time ran, and you go back, and then, the people watching reflect back to the people what they saw. And there's this woman who went, I'm just wondering what all that flapping was about, right? And I'm thinking now, I go, she was sitting there going, you're autistic.
Yeah.
I was just like, I don't know, but I realise now how much time pressure just blows my circuits completely.
Yeah.
So it was really, really it was such a good learning for me to go, time pressure will just send me completely bananas.
Yeah.
So I'll always try and be early all the time. Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. Apparently there's still an echo, and I think Jackie's on YouTube, so that's not great. Sorry, Jackie, I've just tweaked the noise again, so I'm hoping that helps. Anyway, hopefully that doesn't make the whole thing. Anyway, whatever. This is a learning journey.
No, we got to have a chat. That's good.
Yeah, we had a great time. Sorry, guys. No, this has been fun. That's so cool. I just think it's funny how other people can sometimes see our struggles and we can't. It's hard.
And I think even in my assessment, they were saying, "Oh, do you flap, whatever?" And I'm thinking, I can only remember, I can remember 2 incidences in my life when I was truly flapping.
Yeah.
And I was panicking, but I just thought, well, that's just reasonable, right? That's what people do.
Yeah.
But then since then, I have seen myself on video a lot.
Yeah.
And I use my hands so, I'm not necessarily flapping, but they are everywhere. Like they are just.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's different. Other people don't seem to do that.
Yeah. What writing software do you use? Do you like Scrivener or Word or?
I know. I always find that such a funny question because I think I don't know. I use Word. That's it, right?
You do, yeah.
Yeah. No, I did try Scrivener. I can't stand it.
I couldn't deal with Scrivener at all.
People tend to be either love or hate Scrivener. There's nothing in between.
Yeah. I did not have the executive function for Scrivener. You need to be so thought out about where you put stuff. Yes, you can move it around, but there's so much planning in it that I'm my brain will not compute. I
No,
need
and I think for me
flexibility.
too, it was even just the fact that I had to sit down and learn a whole bunch of like command, and I was just like, man, I just cannot. I don't have
Yeah.
enough
Yeah.
extra to do it. So
Yeah.
Word document, that's all I've ever used. And I have an Excel spreadsheet where I just put
Oh,
data, like
nice.
when
Yeah.
people's birthdates are, and
Oh, so you're tracking characters.
where they
Yeah.
lived,
Yeah.
and just this data that
Yeah.
I will forget in
Do
4
you
months' time.
how do you jump around in terms of like I don't use Word much anymore myself, but do you like sort of put chapter headings, and is there a way you can like flick around without having to scroll in Word?
Yeah, it's Control F, and you just put number 3
Find.
or whatever
Oh,
chapter.
okay. Gotcha. That is like the most basic question. Oh my gosh, Annie, that's embarrassing. No, because I just, that's the thing that used to get me about Word is the scrolling aspect of
Yeah.
when you're writing something as big as a book, it just like blows my mind.
Yeah, okay. So what I do have also is
Yeah.
again in Word, but it's just a table,
Yeah.
and then it's got columns on it, and it's what
Okay.
I call a scene plan, which is kind of wrong because it's really a scene log, because I tend to write the scene first and then log it in the plan.
Oh, are
But
you a pantser or a whatever?
mostly.
Yeah, okay.
Novels have a very, very strong structure, and there's certain points you have to hit that, turn
Yes.
the story into a different direction.
Yeah.
I kind of know where those points are and vaguely what they will look like,
Gotcha.
but then what happens in between there is kind of very pantsy.
So
But yeah, so I
neurodivergent
just
of
have like,
you.
in this scene, this
Yeah.
person did this, it was this time, or they were here, or if we did flashbacks, it was that year, and whatever.
Yeah.
So if I need to find something, I can look back on my scene plan and look at what was going on, and then I can sort of type in a few words that I probably remember turn up in that scene, and then I can find it.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it's generally I do have somewhere along the way I mess up my chapter numbers, and so my numbers get out of order, and I have to go through and manually change them all, which is annoying. That would be the only good thing for me about Scrivener, would be that it just sorts out the chapters. But I mean, it's not a big deal.
Yeah. So. How do you find one thing that always intimidated me when I was looking into the fiction space was just like, writing these books takes so long, and on that journey I'm sure there's like such an evolution of maybe you had this plan for that character and it turned out so different, and maybe you have to go back and change some stuff or whatever. How do you like keep track of that? Do you have to just go back and reread it and or is that something you do in your spreadsheets sort of?
No, you've just got to go back and I mean, and I think people underestimate the drafting process of writing. I think people think you write and then you proofread for some spelling mistakes and then you press print, but that first draft gets pulled apart.
Yes.
And sometimes I will delete 30,000 words out of a book and have to rewrite them because when I first start, I don't really know what it's going to look like at the end, and so it doesn't match anymore, and I have to redo stuff. Sometimes I've had characters just turn up and they write themselves into the book, and then I get to the end of the book and I go, you weren't meant to be in that book, and I have to go through and pull them out again.
Yeah.
Or
do you store them away for like another story?
Well, yeah, that happened to me with so when you read the Jam Queen.
Yeah.
And see, I'm terrible with names. I even forget my own characters' names.
Yeah, I'm terrible.
There's a guy in there who is the love interest of the main character, Aggie. And he turned up in Kate Maker's Wish, and I wrote him through from beginning to end. And then everyone, my editor and my publisher, were just like, we don't think this guy is the right guy in this story. And it was a nightmare. It was absolutely. I wanted to quit forever over this book. I pulled him out. He was there from page 1 to the end. Pulled him out of the whole thing, but then I realised he'd turned up into the wrong book, and he was meant to be in the Jam Queen. So when you read the Jam Queen, Harry, his name is.
Gotcha.
Harry was in.
Oh no, he came from another story. That's so cool. Jackie says, hold on. I can't remember my kids' names, let alone able to write a story, lol. Yep, I'm with you, Jackie.
I can so appreciate that. Where you're like calling for a dog or a cat or a kid.
I was like, what's your name again? Because that was something like, because I struggle. My memory, as most of our memories, is complicated, right? But like I really struggle with working memory and shorter term memory. And like I remember the longest term random stuff. But that's always intimidated me about the fiction writing process of, you know, people like Brandon Sanderson, who writes these huge not sci-fi, he's fantasy novels. I'm like, how do you even keep track of it all? Like, it's just it's so epic.
I think partly it's just that writing a novel takes so long. Like,
so long.
You'll be in it for years. So you're kind of with those characters for years. So they do become friends, and they become really, you know them really well. And at some point, there's a really beautiful point where, like, early on, you're sort of trying, you know, you sort of have this idea about a character, and you have this sort of character in mind, and you have them doing things, and it's a lot of work. And then at some point, they just kind of come alive, and then it's more about just listening to what they're saying and writing it down rather than trying to pull it out of them, sort of thing.
Yeah.
What I call the writer's high. It's a beautiful moment when you hit that, when it's just like, oh, you guys are just, you know. And I loved that so much about Phoenix and Lily in their story. They just, this story is about their friendship as much as anything else.
I
and
love
Lily
She's
just
hilarious.
a dream character. And I originally had planned for Phoenix to have like a young man traveling with her, because I was kind of going for that opposites, the odd couple kind of thing. And it was like not working, and I thought it needs to be a woman. And then as soon as I decided that, Lily just turned up, and Lily, you know, dresses in steampunk and has this quasi Jane Austen thing going on. And so sensitive, and she's just a dream character.
Yeah, I really identify with Lily. She's so good. Oh, apparently the echo is gone. Thank you, Jackie. So something I did worked. I'll figure this stuff out eventually. No, that's so cool. I suppose we should wrap this up, because we've already been going like way longer than I intended, but I have too much fun talking to you, so that's standard.
So great. I love that. Thank you.
Well, sorry for anyone who tuned in and there was echo. Hopefully the recording didn't get the echo, and then when I put it up, it'll be fine for people to watch, but that should be fun. Thank you so much, Josephine. This has been the best.
Thank you so much for having me along.
Yes, and everyone needs to go and get a copy. I should hold it up. I've got it on my iPad/Kindle.
One I prepared earlier.
Yeah. It's so good. I also love the cover, by the way. Like the sunflowers, the hiding. Oh.
Well, okay, so there's an interesting, I know we're trying to wrap up.
Oh, yeah, no, do tell me. That's tough.
So authors generally have no say in their cover whatsoever. I mean, if you have one that they send you and you go, that's horrendous, they will change it. But if you're kind of like, okay. So anyway, they sent me this. It was quite different. I didn't know what to expect, because it was a different sort of book, so I didn't know what they were going to do.
Yeah.
And it didn't have these sunflowers on it. And it took me a long time to come to terms with it. And I was actually quite worried about this whole covering women's faces thing.
Interesting.
I don't know. And I sent it to Kay Kerr and Chantel's Shy Little Pixie. And said, what do you think about this? And they were just like, love it, completely love it. This is how I feel.
Me too. Totally, it's such a visual representation of our experience.
Yes. Yes. So that made me feel a lot better that they were just like, totally love it. These sunflowers weren't there though, and I just went back to the publisher and I said, I just feel like it needs a little bit of something, because this is not a depressing book.
It balances out.
Yeah, like there's hope, right?
It's about the wonderful thing, right, about Phoenix Rose. The wonderful thing. It's that celebratory, happy pride aspect, which I think that's really well balanced.
I love it, and it's got this nice little texture, which I love.
Now I need to get the hard copy. Even though I usually get Kindle. Yeah, it's too pretty. No, but that's such a cool story. I've always wondered about that with covers, because I'm such a visual person. So I'm like, I love the creative side of creating covers and this backdrop and stuff. Like I waste so much of my life in Canva. It's so good.
Yes,
it's my little creative.
Good is Canva. So like the greatest creation ever. Awesome.
So good. I literally do I do spreadsheets, mind maps, and everything in Canva. Like I use it for actual work, not just design and creating. Like, because I'm just so visual. And I need to be able to see things, because if I just see a body of text, it tends to overwhelm me. And I'm like, no, I need to visualize it. So I use a software called Obsidian. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's have you heard of Notion?
No, I'm very low tech.
Okay, that's okay.
Okay.
Well, there's so much coming out these days with writing tools and stuff. I'd be interested to see if any of them got you away from Word eventually. So do tell me if you ever find one that
I will.
tears you away from Word. But yeah, I love Notion. I love Obsidian because it's like literally like a replica of my brain. The interconnectedness of it, 'cause you can create links and stuff. It's just it's like neurodivergent dream, but it's also really complex and hard to learn, and so you probably hate that aspect. But I find that stuff fun because tech's one of my special interests, so anyway, it's fine.
Yeah, I did a little flirtation with I can't remember what it's called now. It's a screenwriting software, and everyone uses it. And,
I just keep thinking of Scrivener.
Anyway, it's like the one that everyone uses.
Gotcha.
And I did a little brief thing on a screenplay of one of my books, and with a friend who was a screenwriter.
Yeah.
And so she taught me how to use it. But it had a whole section where it was like a big storyboardy thing where you could put, I think you would like it. It's like, you can move.
Oh, you'll have to give me the name of it.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah. It'll come to you like the minute we stop this. That's how it works, right? I always find like the harder I try to get like find that word, the worse it is. Like,
I have such word finding problems. It's really frustrating.
Same.
Not from my finger, no, from here.
No,
here to
exactly.
here works really well.
Oh, yeah. Well, you certainly don't writing a book because you write a dang good book, and I can't wait to read the rest of them. Thanks, Jo. Have a good night, and thanks for being here, everyone. Bye, Jackie, if you're still there.